We are the 75th anniversary of Indian independence. We are an oil guzzling economy that imports a large portion of our fuel requirements. You mentioned at the start of the interview that there can be some moves that have to be done or should be done or are being done, which might change the landscape over the period of the next 10, 15 years for the people coming ahead to inherit a better country in a better space. Can you tell us about one or two things that are happening currently, which you might be a part of as well, and which give you the hope, which might also make the business case strong?
So there's a very famous picture which I saw, which when the Brazilian delegation came to India, they show this picture literally in every conference of theirs. They show a photograph of Sao Paulo before introduction of flex fuel engines, and then they show it after 2 years after introduction of flex fuel engines. 2 years later, you can see the buildings. 1 year in the previous photographs, you can hardly see a haze, and that tells you a lot about. And they said this is the real picture. So this is not being propagated by somebody who's interested into this from any other perspective, just to say that look, this is possible, right? And that picture has stayed with me, and I think that's what actually tells us that as we move forward as a country and a rapid development, our needs are going to change. Biofuels or clean energy, if I can put a larger word, clean energy has to have a much more share of our energy pie compared to what it has held so far. And I think a lot of being done around wind, around solar, biofuels. And I think all of this will have to, they will increasingly find a higher space of the pie, if I can use that word. And that's my vision as well. And then it doesn't get limited to what I would call just the road transportation, but it also then transits to aviation fuels, it translates to marine fuels, it translates to the way the whole ecosystem, the Sadat program that we talked about a little earlier, which is distributed energy, not centralized energy. I think the whole ecosystem, both in terms of what's local pollution and local issues, but also a longer term, carbon intensity reduction solutions like sustainable aviation fuels, marine, they all will have to start playing in tandem. So the way I see, and then this always this debate about saying, hey, so what happens if e-vehicles come along, and then what do you do? The point is this: I think we have to understand that each technology, we are moving to an era which will be coexistence of multiple technologies, and increasing role for everything that is clean and renewable, whether it comes from low carbon fuels, whether it comes from transits to no carbon fuels, as I call them, green hydrogen, we've been hearing about it. So I think we will see a good new energy mix emerge, which is good in the opinion, because it will not force the end user to change their habits. You still go to the pump, you still fill up your vehicle, whatever you have, and move on, right? Whether you charge your car with electric socket or you put it into a biofuel pump, that depends on what technology you are using and what is your need. But clearly, the renewable energy or the clean energy will have a much more increasing play the way we go about. That's one. Two, I think some of these habits change because sometimes people need incentives, sometimes people need, as we call Samdam Dandabhed, all the four will have to be used to different degrees at different times. But what's important is we understand that a carbon tax mechanism will come into play, if not today, then tomorrow. In whichever form it comes, it can start on a smaller scale, then go and expand itself to a larger scale. But obviously, we have to understand that we cannot continue to pollute in a manner that compromises the future of our children. That is not